You know, visitors to our region are often amazed by what they find here. A clean and beautiful city full of history and great attractions. So why are they amazed? Well, speaking of history, let's face it, Pittsburgh wasn't always like this. Take a look at this clip from a 1950s USIA documentary.
Barely 10 years ago, Pittsburgh was known by its inhabitants as the smoke center of the earth, the Smoky City. No city anywhere in the world had more smoke than Pittsburgh had. It was a grim city, a city you could taste in your mouth, a city that smarted in your eyes. Smoke blotted out the sun. It filled the lungs of every man, woman, and child within its reach. Nothing was free of its touch.
Well, that was then, and this is now. So how did we get from there to here? One project, one landmark, one building at a time. Here again is WQED's Rick Seaback with a look at a couple of downtown examples.
PPG, CNG, 1 Oxford, Fifth Avenue Place, they're all part of what's now known as the Second Renaissance during the 1980s. All these new high-rise office complexes mean that more people than ever before work downtown. There's no mistaking, it's the central business district. There are places to shop and eat, and even to relax. But most people in town these days are there because they work there.
You either love it or you hate it. People would come in and say, "Oh God, is that terrible?" Somebody else says, "I just love those buildings in that plaza, in the obelisk," which has a lot of different names in the area, none of which I want to mention.
Well, I'll tell you my favorite name for the obelisk, the Tomb of the Unknown Bowler. A nice explanation for those 4 black spheres at the base of the column. The obelisk is surrounded by 6 silver glass buildings. The whole thing is known as PPG Place. The main building, a 40-story skyscraper with pinnacles on top, a postmodern sort of Gothic tower, has added some zing to the Pittsburgh skyline since the early 1980s. Vince Sarney, who's chairman of the board and CEO of PPG, was involved in the project from the start.
We decided that we would make a one-time major contribution to the community, and so we conceived and developed the PPG Place project.
It's fun to imagine what the company must have thought when they first saw the idea for this space-age fortress of glass.
I remember very clearly because Philip Johnson, who was the architect, came here after he received the assignment, and he went around the city. He walked around the city and looked around the city. And let me tell you that the original sketch he came with is what we finally built. We made a lot of suggestions, and we had a lot of thoughts, and we had a lot of views, and he listened to them all very kindly and agreed with a lot of them, but we finally built exactly what he sketched the first time. And you know what? I'm glad we did, because he knew what he was talking about.
There are places to stay downtown. The William Penn is the oldest hotel in the city. It opened March 9, 1916, with a total of 1,000 guest rooms. Marianne Lee, one of the hotel's sales managers, says a standard room back then cost $2.50 a night.
These rooms were as big as shoe boxes, and the selling point in 1916, in fact, the most important point, was each room had its own bathroom. You didn't have to go down the hall, so we were quite the modern hotel then.
Well, now some of the least modern things about the hotel are the most charming, like the old ballroom on the 17th floor. Lisa Berkowitz and Brian Lurie decided to get married here.
You know, when we first started looking at places, we really went all over Pittsburgh, and when we walked into the William Penn, we said, this is it. Even though it's right in the middle of the city, you could be somewhere in Europe. It's gorgeous.
The William Penn's Grand Ballroom is an extraordinary space for a celebration, an elegant and bright place to do something significant. The William Penn was called the Penn Sheraton from 1956 until 1968. It's always been a popular place with celebrities. The pianist in the lobby, Gloria Spiegler, is playing the theme song of Lawrence Welk. He had several reasons to love this hotel. He claimed to have gotten his big break here in the late 1930s. Someone at a Pittsburgh radio station said Welk's music was so bubbly it was like champagne, and Welk and his band liked that idea. Then, 10 years later, one of the hotel's engineers, Ludwig Dernoschik, rigged up a crazy little device that made bubbles. It became Lawrence Welk's first bubble machine.
Well, Welk came back to the hotel in '48, shortly after this machine was invented, and they put this together with his champagne music makers, and history was made. This is a bread pan, an old clock motor, which they soldered little bubble wands, which in the '40s were made of metal, as you can see, and a little fan in the back. Just give it a minute. And there you are.